Rise, Meg.
There is a great disturbance in the Force.
Hello everyone, so this is my full breakdown and review of Chapter 14 of The Mandalorian. I will be giving all my thoughts throughout and also at the end. So stay tuned for that, but without too much jibber jabber, let's get into it. The episode starts with the Razor Crest headed towards Tython. Mando says, "We're going to find that place that you belong," and then it cuts to the title screen. So chapter 14 is called The Tragedy. We see the Razor Crest arrive on a sunny Tython, the first live action appearance of the planet outside of Knights of the Old Republic, and it looked absolutely phenomenal. We see the Seeing Stone from the Razor Crest, and Mando says, "Looks like that magic rock I'm supposed to take you to." With too small of a landing space, Mando jetpacks himself and Grogu to the Seeing Stone. So it's very clear that Mando doesn't really understand how the Seeing Stone works, and nothing happens initially. As he says to the kid that he's supposed to do all the rest and his job was just to take him there, there is a huge moment because we see Slave One flying above Mando. Of course, this is Boba Fett's iconic ship, as first seen in 1980's The Empire Strikes Back. Suddenly, just as Mando says that it's time to get out of there, Grogu is seen in a trance of pure Force energy. We see gravings all the way around the Seeing Stone. As Mando reaches for Grogu, a blast of Force energy sends Mando tumbling out onto his back. All the while, Grogu is in a meditative state. As Mando scans the premises, we see Boba Fett exiting the Slave One. Mando gets his blaster out, but as he leaves Grogu to try and buy him some time, we see a huge blast erupt in front of Djarin's path. It is at this moment that we hear Boba Fett say, "I've been tracking you, Mandalorian." Then he appears. He tells Mando that he is there for his armor. Djarin then asks him, "Are you a Mandalorian?" And we get a huge callback to Attack of the Clones, because just like his father Jango said to Obi-Wan on Kamino, Boba Fett tells Mando, "I'm a simple man making my way through the galaxy." Boba then proceeds to tell Mando that the armor was his father's and now it's his. He threatens Mando, saying that he has a sharpshooter on the ridge above them. Mando doesn't really back down at first, but then Fennec Shand appears and she has her gun pointed straight at Grogu on top of the Seeing Stone. All three of them agree to put down their weapons. Boba then confirms that he was the mysterious figure we only saw the legs of in Season 1, who saved Fennec after she was left for dead on Tatooine. Boba Fett promises and guarantees the safety of the child if Mando hands him his armor. An Imperial transport then suddenly flies above their heads, and it lands right next to the Razor Crest. So back on the Tython hilltop, the Force rays still surround Grogu. Mando yells, "It's time to go, kid," and fights his way through the Force shield. Again, he is repulsed backwards. We see stormtroopers exit the transport and Fennec Shand with Boba Fett start firing. We see a stormtrooper with an orange pauldron, and this is in fact a callback to both Rogue One and A New Hope. Stormtroopers with the colour orange as their pauldron were commanders and were some of the highest ranked stormtroopers. So in the next scene we see Boba wielding the Tusken gaffy stick. He takes out a stormtrooper with it and then a few more, and it's a really cool martial arts type sequence, and it adds a different layer and depth to Boba Fett's character as we know him. And I will just say that I urge you all to turn on audio description for this scene because it is truly hilarious. The narrator describes Boba defeating the stormtroopers with the exact words, "He shatters the trooper's helmet like a piñata." Next, as the shooting between Fennec and the stormtroopers continues, we see a yellow striped mortar trooper. Now this was a character teased through promotional action figures and posters prior to the release of Season 2. Well, now we know how this character fits in. He is a yellow striped mortar trooper. So while Boba Fett is taking out some stormtroopers, he notices the Razor Crest and his armor that lies within. Meanwhile, the force field around Grogu finally dissipates and he breathes heavily before falling asleep. Mando comes to Fennec Shand's rescue, using his whistling birds to take out some more stormtroopers. Then from the sky drops Boba Fett, and this time he's in full form, wearing his armor. What a huge and epic moment for all Star Wars fans, because we haven't seen Boba Fett in this way since Return of the Jedi, and here he is. And I must say that he pulls out all the stops when it comes to all the fancy stuff his armor does. But what is particularly awesome is that he kept his Tatooine robes underneath and combined the iconic Boba Fett armor with his reinvented look since his survival of the Sarlacc pit on Tatooine. So the stormtroopers retreat, and as their Imperial transport departs, we see Fennec Shand, Mando and Boba Fett watch an energy blast from the sky that comes down and absolutely obliterates the Razor Crest. Now, as sad as a moment that was, let's be honest here, you've got to admit that it was kind of satisfying. The way that the Razor Crest just explodes into oblivion, I really enjoyed that, and I replayed that moment 6 times, I'm not gonna lie to you. So then we see a light cruiser appear above them, and evidently it's Moff Gideon's ship. As Mando hurries back to try and save Grogu, we see the child asleep atop the Seeing Stone. On board the Imperial light cruiser, Moff Gideon asks if the Dark Troopers have been engaged. Now, I've spoken in depth on my channel about the Dark Troopers, specifically at the end of the breakdown for Chapter 12, where we do see Moff Gideon preparing the Dark Troopers for action while they were still in their cells. So we then see the female Imperial officer we saw in Chapter 12, and she confirms. The Dark Troopers are then dispatched from the Imperial ship and set straight for the hilltop on Tython. I've got to tell you though, as a Battlefront fan myself, it was so incredible to see a live action version of the Dark Troopers, and they really zoomed in on their orange eyes and the awesomeness of their aesthetic. So they uniformly surround Grogu and he wakes up to find them. One of the Dark Troopers grabs him and then they all head back towards the ship. Slave 1 then intercepts and we see an Empire Strikes Back-esque Boba at the wheel of his signature ship. While he has the intentions of helping out Mando because his part of the deal has to be met, he abandons the pursuit soon after realizing that the Empire is back. Helpless and desperate, Mando wallows in the wreckage of the Razor Crest and Fennec Shand and Boba watch on. In a quite emotional moment, Mando finds the shifter knob, the one that Grogu loves so much. Along with that, he also finds the pure Beskar spear that we saw in Chapter 13. Boba then decides to show Din Djarin his chain code, which reveals the Mandalorian lineage that he is from. It is confirmed that Jango, Boba's dad, was a foundling who fought in the Mandalorian civil wars. The 3 of them then fly to Navarro for help. We see Cara Dune, who held on to the New Republic badge in the end, and she did turn out to be a joiner. This was the badge, of course, that Carson gave her at the end of Chapter 12. Mando addresses her as Marshal of the New Republic, to which she answers, "I wouldn't go that far." He asks her to locate someone on the prison registry, ex-Imperial sharpshooter named Mayfeld, who we did actually see in Season 1, portrayed brilliantly by Bill Burr. Now, evidently, he does need help if he's going to track down Grogu and get him back from Moff Gideon. So in the closing scene, we see Moff Gideon traveling through hyperspace, and immediately I thought, is this going to link to Thrawn later on in this season, perhaps in the finale? Remember that we just have 2 episodes to go, so maybe they're going to link them at some point. Now, this is something worth noting, considering the fact that Moff Gideon has Grogu on board. Grand Admiral Thrawn was known for kidnapping young Force sensitives, so I'm not sure if they're going to tie him into this somehow. So next we see Moff Gideon walking through the halls, and he turns into the cell that he's keeping Grogu in. Now Grogu is force choking and throwing these stormtroopers using all of his force abilities, and he wears himself out. Moff Gideon walks up to Grogu in a very menacing way and says, "You've gotten very good at that." Moff Gideon then ignites the Darksaber and asks him, "Have you ever seen one of these before in years past?" Now evidently it seems like Grogu knows exactly what the Darksaber is because he does reach out for it. This pulls into question, how does Grogu know the Darksaber, and there must be areas of his past after he was taken from the Jedi Temple that involve the Darksaber in some way. So at this point, Moff Gideon says that Grogu needs a long sleep, and he signals for a stormtrooper to use a stun shot to knock him out. This is the same kind of stun shot we saw in A New Hope when the stormtroopers used it on Princess Leia. He commands that Grogu be placed in shackles, and he is. And in the final scene, Moff Gideon orders an officer, the same female officer we saw earlier, to send an encrypted message to Dr. Pershing to tell him that they've got their donor. Of course, this is for their cloning plan and the cloning facility. While some people believe the cloning facility will eventually lead to the creation of Snoke and then even Palpatine, some say this is just a red herring, and the cloning facility we're going to see in The Mandalorian has little or nothing to do with the sequel trilogy. But knowing the way that Disney will probably want to tie the two together, we can safely assume it has something to do with it. So we see Grogu knocked out and placed in shackles, and the screen turns to black. Now this one was directed by Robert Rodriguez, and he did an excellent job. Every week you guys hear me say that this is my new favorite episode or this is my new favorite episode, but quite simply this one felt so authentic to Star Wars, and while it was action-packed, it didn't feel like that's all there was. There were different layers and depths to each character. And let's face it, we got Boba Fett, Moff Gideon, the Dark Troopers. We went back to Navarro, we went straight to Tython. We saw the abilities of the Force surround Grogu. This was simply everything you want in Star Wars packed into a 35-minute episode. So I'm extremely satisfied as a fan, and more than anything, I was so surprised to see Boba Fett again. And we didn't just see Boba Fett like we saw him teased at the end of Chapter 9, we actually got to see him wear his iconic armor from The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So it was really great fan service done completely accurately, and in a way it showed a different side to Boba Fett's character. You see, there were rumours at the start of the season that Boba Fett's character arc in Season 2 was going to be one of redemption, and in a way this was. We saw a different side to him, and he ended up being an ally to Mando. I also really like the fact that there is now conflict, and the Lucasfilm executive who said at the start of the week that these last 3 episodes were going to be a roller coaster was absolutely right, because now we don't know which direction we're going to go in. Is there tragedy down the line? Are they going to finish the season on a cliffhanger with Grogu still captured, and will Mando fail? Or will he get Grogu back? I think there's so much to unpack with Grogu's backstory, and we learned that in this episode. And it is not as simple as Ahsoka made it out to be when she read his mind. There is a lot of complexity to his character still to be unwoven and to be discovered. So that's all I'm going to say about it. I absolutely loved this one, and I'm definitely going to watch it again and again until next week. So what I will say is please like and subscribe if you enjoyed my video, and I will be going in a little bit more depth in tomorrow's video to do with this chapter. But for now, my friends, I'm wishing you a phenomenal rest of the day, no matter where you are in the galaxy. I'm Star Wars Meg. Have a great one.